Hey, well, my name's Andy Levy. I'm a trial lawyer in Baltimore, Maryland, and I also teach at Maryland has two law schools, University of Maryland, University of Baltimore, and from time to time I teach both of them. I also have a close family in Glendale, so I don't know where in Arizona you folks are, but I've been there a bunch of times. I love the state.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, I guess. My name is Anthony Miller. I am an alumni of the program. I was a senior in 2009, 2010 school year, so I competed about 10 years ago. And since then, I've been a coordinator and coach. So I've helped organize the competitions in the state of Nevada, and I've helped coach teams. And this is my first year now judging at the national level. So I'm really excited to hear what you guys have for us today. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, because it is morning in Honolulu. My name is Susan Arnett. I am a criminal defense lawyer, just retired from the Public Defender's Office. I also teach at the University of Hawaii Law School. And I don't know if you're aware, but about 1,200 Hawaii inmates are housed at a facility in Arizona, which, we don't like, but I've had occasion to talk on the phone a lot of times with clients who are at that facility. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you this morning.
And
My name is Aaron.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. My name is Aaron Robidoux, and I am a council person of our local NHS chapter.
My name is Daniel Manning, and I play on our high school's varsity tennis team.
My name is Christopher Manuel, and I'm a section leader in my marching band.
And my name is Rihanna Peterson, and I'm the concert master of our high school symphony. And our coaches are Miss Lindblom and Miss Lutzenberger.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and congratulations on being here. And I do need to ask Chris and Rihanna what your instruments are.
I've been playing the violin for 15 years now.
I've been playing the tenor sax for about 7 years.
Wow, okay.
All of you students are so much more involved than I was in high school. Very impressive.
Yes, to say the least. Okay, so the unit 4, and I know you know the question, but we're going to read it anyway, just so we can literally make sure we're all on the same page. Members of Congress are not only legislators, but they are also inquisitorial and should meet frequently to inspect the conduct of the public officers. It's a quote attributed to George Mason. How effectively do you believe Congress has used its investigatory power? Explain the differences, if any, between Congress's power to investigate and the power of oversight. Which power, in your opinion, is more significant? How effectively do you believe Congress has used its oversight powers? And you're welcome to begin whenever you're ready.
In the movie Back to the Future, Doc Brown invents the flux capacitor and powers it with plutonium. Similarly, Congress creates bureaucratic agencies and gives them the power to do their job. In addition, Congress knows the purpose of each agency and keeps each agency in check. So, Congress uses oversight and investigations to ensure that the executive does not abuse its power.
Now, while Congress has successfully used its investigatory and oversight powers, partisan politics try to prevent Congress from maximizing these powers, just like the forces of nature tried to prevent Marty from returning back to the future.
The Constitution does not explicitly grant Congress the power to investigate. It is in Article 1, Section 1, which grants Congress all legislative powers. In 1997, McGrane v. Daughtry recognized that the power of inquiry was an implicit authority to gather information in association with its legislative function, as legislative inquiry has been used to effectively discover abuse of power and pass legislation.
Some examples include the 1922 Senate investigation of the Teapot Dome scandal, which resulted in the imprisonment of the former Secretary of Interior. The Senate hearings conducted by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence uncovered use of illegal surveillance on Americans by bureaucratic agencies, resulting in the 1978 Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
Even so, at times, Congress has overstepped its power to investigate. The 1954 McCarthy hearings probed suspected communists for their supposed un-American activities. In response, 1957 Watkins v. U.S. explained the focus of investigations was to expose corruption, inefficiency, or waste, not to investigate the private affairs of individuals.
Though their investigative powers have been used ineffectively at times, overall, Congress has investigated appropriately to pass meaningful legislation and detect executive abuse.
According to the Legislative Reorganization Act of 1970, oversight exists to review and study the application, administration, and execution of laws under its jurisdiction. So, through oversight, Congress acts as the eyes and ears of the people to review and check the executive and its bureaucratic agencies. This is accomplished through authorization, appropriation, Senate advice and consent, legislative and investigatory hearings.
Similarly, the investigatory power queries into the qualifications and administrations of the other branches of government, but also gathers information for passing legislation and judging the effectiveness of current laws. During investigations, Congress collects evidence and can subpoena witnesses.
Overall, the power of oversight is more significant because it is a broader power and serves as a cornerstone of the checks and balances of the federal government. Whereas investigations serve as an essential element of oversight, detecting maladministration, abuse, waste, or fraud.
While oversight has been used successfully, partisanship impedes its overall effectiveness. According to political scientist Norman Ornstein, under a unified government, executive departments and agencies have no fear of Congress. In these cases, Congress seldom uses oversight to counter the president's agenda because they support the executive and its agencies.
On the other hand, in a divided government, oversight is more active. For instance, President Obama faced intense oversight from a divided government, resulting in several significant investigations, repeatedly resulting in no charges.
This active oversight again occurred under President Trump's divided government, resulting in 2 impeachment trials. Partisanship plays such a significant role in impeachment that it was not until 2020 that a Senator, Mitt Romney, voted to remove a president from his own party. This clearly demonstrates the extreme partisanship evident in the oversight power of impeachment.
Doc, as the inventor of the flux capacitor, is the only one who can help Marty return to his timeline. While Congress is not trying to harness the power of lightning on top of a clock tower, it must rein in partisan politics in order to properly keep the government in check. Congress isn't returning back to the future, but rather back to its original intent.
Well, thank you very much. Let me, I have a lot of questions from your opening. Let me ask this one. You cited the Watkins case, which establishing essentially a personal public test that Congress could only investigate on the public side of wherever that line falls. Do you think Congress's subpoena of President Trump's income tax records involving his private businesses violated the Watkins test, and sort of why or why not?
When the court considered the subpoena of Trump's tax returns by the House Committee of Oversight, in the Trump case of Trump v. Mesa and Trump v. Vance in 2020, they did not apply the Watkins test. Instead, they didn't even apply executive privilege test. They applied an Article 2 separation of powers test and thus remanded the case because the agency did not adequately consider the separation of powers concerns inherent in their subpoenas into Trump's private affairs as a citizen.
I'd also add that while the subpoenas were given to Trump, that the committees themselves, specifically the House of Ways and Means Committee that instigated this, was actually within their jurisdiction as given in House Rule 10, where they act within whatever they deem would be appropriate to investigate. And so while it was private, they went through the avenues to reach his tax returns.
Do any of you believe that any of these investigations by Congress during the Trump administration exceeded the power of Congress under Article 1?
I believe that yes, there are investigations under Trump's administration that have been abuses of the investigation power, including the 2019 investigation into Hunter Biden's personal affairs, which were a purely partisan investigation into someone related to the 2020 presidential election, instead moving to slander the other opponent instead of serving any sort of legislative function.
Thank you. You're on mute.
Mr.
Chief.
Arnett, you're on mute.
You indicated, if I understood correctly in your presentation, that investigation would center on abuse, waste, or fraud was what they would be looking for. And I'm interested in investigations such as the tobacco industry hearings in the 1960s about what they knew or didn't know about the dangers of cigarette smoking, investigations into steroid use in baseball. How does that relate to Congress investigating abuse, waste, or fraud of the areas that for which it enacts legislation?
Well, in terms of those cases, it would be considered fraud because all of the different companies are lying to the public and saying that their own businesses are not harmful to other people. And because of it, they're harming the public good. And it's the job of the government to protect the welfare of the people.
Even more recently, with the big tech hearings of last year, the different bipartisan committees were enacting oversight over Facebook, Amazon, to see if there was a monopoly forming between these companies, which a lot of senators grilled these executives and determined that there was sort of a midst of a monopoly forming, but they were more also influenced on the privacy of the Americans, of whether or not how their data was being taken and what these companies would exactly do with it. And so they would try to look for fraud in these big tech companies as well.
In addition, investigation isn't employed only to detect abuse, waste, or fraud. 1880 Kilburn v. Thomas established that investigations can be inquired into with legislative intent, meaning that it's not only abuse, waste, or fraud. And while those are the main aspects of investigation and the main problems that we want to solve, inquiring into future legislation and possible future legislation is also important.
Do you believe that the investigatory power of Congress is effectively being used in recent years? Specifically, this is inspired by your conversation about the Facebook and all the tech company inquiries, in the manner in which they're using it. What I'm trying to get at here is, do you think that subpoenaing Mark Zuckerberg and the CEOs of all these companies to come in and talk in front of a committee in Congress is the most effective way of conducting that investigation? Congress has a lot of other resources at their disposal. Do you think there are better ways they could have done this, or do you think that doing this right out in the public and pulling the CEOs in to talk directly to them is an effective way of handling this?
I would say that first, doing this in front of the public would actually be good, because public influence would be able to enact legislation at a future date. For example, with the recent Robinhood hearings of Robinhood and GameStop, there was a lot of bipartisan effort to conduct hearings of why Robinhood cut stocks from users on the Robinhood app when the GameStop stock rose a huge amount this year. And so they subpoenaed the creator of the r/Wall Street Bets Reddit thread, and also the company exec of the Robinhood. And so by doing this in the public space, the public can get a view of the information that is being given, and then also through their own possibly vote for legislation that could affect whatever came out of the investigation.
However, these investigations are not always so effective and sometimes showcase the hyperpartisanship in Congress. In 2001, Dan Burton, the chair of the House Committee of Oversight and Reform, issued thousands of unilateral subpoenas against the Clinton administration, only to hinder their executing of the law and not for any reasonable legislative purpose.
But because these companies are all not government companies, these legislative hearings are some of the most important ways to actually go and investigate, because they can't use appropriations to cut funding for something they're not funding in the first place. And so using legislative hearings to get more information, such as when they did it with the Natural Resources and Energy Committee to find out why gas prices were rising, is really the most effective way to get more information.
You, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was up. Should the naked?
Oh,
Well,
you're
I'm
not
going
up,
to assume
Andrew.
that
Time.
number one, that would be a really good question, and that you would have hit it out of the ballpark. So we'll give you credit. Not that you're going to need it, because you guys did an awfully nice job, and so I think I gave you a pretty hard opening question. I thought it was okay, because I think sort of anything you're sort of talking about in your opening statement is, is fair fodder. But it is a way, obviously, of testing. Do you just know the headline of the case, or do you really know what the was it the Watkins case? Yeah, the Watkins case did. And I thought your answers were very informed. The citation to the two of the Trump cases, and knowing that they didn't rely on Watkins, but instead were held that the lower court applied the wrong standard and sort of remanded it. That's pretty rare air. That's pretty impressive. Trust me, I've taught law school for a long time. That's pretty impressive for high school students, because I don't know that my law students could take a chapter, frankly, from your guys' ability to sort of answer those questions. That's the honest truth. I just thought it was you were all well spoken. I thought the handoffs were done well. You seemed to work with each other well. I don't know, by any chance you guys been spending a lot of time together lately? I suspect so. No, it's just I am convinced that you know the stuff, you've done the research, you've done the work, and equally important and sometimes more difficult, you've thought about these problems, and you've genuinely considered all of the very sort of difficult issues. These are hard questions, and they're not easy answers to them. So just bravo all around. Congratulations to your teacher, and I'm sure congratulations to your parents. I'm sure they're proud enough to burst right now, and they have every reason to be.
Thank you.
Yes, I echo what Andy said. And as he was talking about you guys spending time together, I had images of, at your breaks, Christopher or Rihanna playing music to calm everyone down, restore. What I really appreciated about this is that, some of the examples are expected in discussion of this issue, like Teapot Dome, and that sort of thing. But sometimes when we ask a question, we'll get an answer back that's not quite on point with the question, but demonstrates knowledge, which is great, but it's not particularly responsive. And where I think you sort of distinguish yourselves was that, when I asked about tobacco, you said, well, yeah, let's talk about tobacco, but then there's also tech. And then, later brought up about GameStop and gas prices. And, you seem to have an appreciation and understanding of the issues that this question deals with that to me was evident in your discussion and responses. I really appreciated that. I think it demonstrates the level of work you put into this.
Yeah, I want to mirror everything that's been said. I think I'm very impressed with the research and the knowledge that you guys were able to demonstrate today in a very short period of time. Your answer to Andrew's question about the Watkins test was excellent, and I'm like wanting to go and read up on it now, because I don't think I have as much knowledge as you guys do about that. I think that was really great. I loved the conversation about the Facebook, Google, Twitter inquiries, the tech inquiries and stuff. And so for a little bit of background, I'm a software engineer. I spent 14 months of my career working for Facebook, and I was working there during these inquiries when Mark Zuckerberg was in Congress. And I think that it is absolutely a great thing that Congress is trying to investigate the power that these companies have and the monopolies and the hold they have over our information and the control they have over public opinion and the dispersal of news and information. I think that it's wonderful that Congress is concerned about those things. But if you watched the inquiries themselves, it was kind of a joke. It was almost comical. This was a bunch of very, very old, technologically illiterate people asking CEOs of tech companies basically how the internet works. It was, and most of it was political grandstanding. And the questions that were of any substance at all, that weren't just attacks at them personally, were very, very basic. They didn't get to the heart of the issue. They were talking about like, how does Facebook transmit information? It was really stuff about like, how does internet work? And it was, so I guess what I was trying to get at here was that I agree with you that these investigations are important and should happen, but the Congress doesn't have to pull CEOs of companies into a public hearing to do so. And I agreed with your assessment that like having this be public is an important thing for the people to understand and be informed about this. But look at the way that the 9/11 Commission report was done. That investigation wasn't done in public hearings. It was done with a huge amount of clerical work, research that was done in like working with the departments of the government. And perhaps Congress could have assistants and clerks and people who understood this, hire or work with experts to do more research and build a report and absolutely release some stuff publicly. But I think that what I was trying to get at here was if you look at the actual manner in which some of these inquisitions happen, it tends to feel sometimes that they're more about political grandstanding and gaining points for the Congress people themselves rather than really getting to the heart of the issue. And that's what I was trying to get at there. The arguments you guys made were wonderful. You just didn't get to the thing that I was trying to get. And it's not fair for judges to try, expect you to read our minds. But I just wanted to kind of, give you something to think about there. Overall, I really did love your assessment and analysis of the law. I loved the opinions you guys had, and you supported them very, very well. I was really, really impressed. So congratulations and great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, just
Thank you.
finally, I don't think there's much stuff written for the tenor sax and the violin, or maybe I'm just old and maybe they've written a lot and I just don't know about it. But if they haven't, they should.
Thank you.
Good night. Good luck to you guys. You're great.
Good luck.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.